Hello and welcome to Direct Approach with Wayne Moorehead, an exclusive podcast by Direct Selling News where host Wayne interviews the channel's leading corporate executives to provide timely insights and relevant takeaways to help you grow and evolve your businesses. This week, we're flipping the script. DSN founder and CEO Stuart Johnson interviews host Wayne Moorehead to talk about some of the key takeaways and insights that Wayne has gathered over 40 recorded interviews. Since the launch of the podcast 18 months ago, our audience has grown steadily, and today, Direct Approach is honored to have more than 13,500 unique downloads and growing every episode. At the recent Direct Selling University Fall 2022 event, we mixed it up and asked Wayne to sit in the guest chair to share some of his more important learnings with us. In this candid conversation from the DSU stage, you'll learn more about how the podcast began and hear about some of Wayne's most memorable moments. Then, Wayne talks about some of the trends that corporate leaders have shared during these bi-weekly episodes, including such topics as the rise of social selling, the importance of self-care for leaders, and how the nature of competition is changing, and what that means for the channel. We know you're going to enjoy this one-on-one between Stuart and Wayne, and we are happy to give you a front row seat to one of DSU's highest ranked sessions. On that note, we invite you to save the date for the next DSU event in April 2023 and the annual DSN Global Celebration known as the Oscars of Direct Selling. Please plan to join us Tuesday, April 18th through Thursday, April 20th at the Omni Frisco Hotel in Frisco, Texas. You do not want to miss out on these incredible events. And now that you've been listening to the podcast for more than 18 months, we would like to hear from you. This week, we're releasing our listener survey to learn how we can better serve you through the Direct Approach podcast. Please take a moment to share what you have found to be the most valuable and what you'd like to learn more about in the future. Scan the QR code on the page, or if listening to this in audio format, please visit our website at directsellingnews.com and find the Listen and Watch tab for the podcast page to take the survey. You can also take the survey on any of our social channels. We look forward to your input so we can provide you with the best podcast experience possible in 2023 and beyond. Before we begin, DSN is honored to be supported by industry suppliers that partner with companies across the channel to help enhance, streamline, and grow their businesses. This episode's sponsors are Nexio and Infotrax. Nexio was purpose-built to solve the payment problems direct sellers face. Their unified platform simplifies the complexity of the payments industry and helps you design forward-thinking strategies. Nexio empowers you to take control of commerce strategy, orchestrate payouts to distributors, optimize your transactions to grow your revenue, and maintain the flexibility to overcome obstacles in the ever-changing world of payments. Learn more at nex.io. That is nex.io. And when rapid growth or international expansion place demands on your business your systems aren't prepared to handle, success itself can be a potential cause of failure. As you grow, your system's requirements change, and nothing is worse than being hard-coded into a corner. The Infotrax platform was built with growth in mind, allowing the freedom to adjust your system at any time to align with your current business needs. Learn more at infotraxsys.com. That is infotraxsys.com. Now, please help me welcome your guest host for today, Stuart Johnson, founder and CEO of DSN, as he interviews podcast host Wayne Moorehead on his key takeaways from more than 40 plus episodes of the Direct Approach podcast.
Wayne has been in the channel for 20 years, started at New Skin, and we had the pleasure and privilege of meeting when he was CMO at Monavie.
Yeah, about 05.
About 05. There you go, 17 years. And you talk about being the number 7 employee or whatever it was, had the desk that was the folding table.
Yeah, my own laptop. No health insurance back in those days. Those are actually, you look back and those are some of the funner days for sure.
Anyway, so it's just a great story. So Wayne and I met at Monavie, developed a great relationship, and we've been dear friends ever since. And really, since that point, probably friends first, and then business relationship second. So It's been a privilege to have Wayne as a friend and to be able to know more about him and his family and everything that we've been able to spend time together. So we'll start that off and say that this is a lot more than a professional relationship. So.
No, absolutely. Really appreciate your friendship and mentorship and career guidance and, and everything else you've been to me. So thank you.
Well, if you're going to bring up the career guidance, I just want to make sure we talk about the fact that there's been a few times you've listened and a few you haven't.
That's true. Yep, and you'd think I'd learn by now, but...
Well, I wasn't going to say it, but I appreciate you, I appreciate you bringing it up.
I'll get there.
So after Montevideo, Wayne went over and did Chief Strategy Officer at Case Media in New York. Really, really well-known, reputable, well-respected ad agency. They actually did the rebranding on Success at some point, and then he went back to Nature Sunshine, CMO. Wayne's kind of like that cat at the screen door. When he's inside, he wants out, and when he's outside, he wants in.
Yep, absolutely.
That's Wayne.
I like the Godfather analogy. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. So
I think you keep telling yourself the Godfather. I'm sticking with the cat.
The cat. That's probably.
I'm sticking with it.
I know. I just think the Godfather's tougher.
So then he goes back out to Hint Media as Chief Strategy Officer and gets to work with some amazing brands. We can get into that for a second or two. And then he comes and helps us out at Success Partners for a little while, which was fantastic. We got a rebranding. The Success Magazine got a rebranding. And then he went into Purple, direct-to-consumer company. You helped them go from what to what, 75 to 300?
Yeah, it was really early days, to about 300 when I left. We went public in 2018, and it was just an amazing ride. I never thought I would be selling mattresses. But it was actually, from a marketing perspective, it was a blast. The company was really kind of at the forefront of a lot of the D2C practices that are, much more common and widespread today. But it was fun just to kind of get a budget and go figure out what works, because no one knew what worked really at the time, and amazing experience.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, what a nice situation to be able to have that type of direct-to-consumer actually in the trenches after being in the agencies and being in network marketing, and so. Then you went to Young Living.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had the experience there with a multi-billion-dollar company, global, lots of friends, had a great time. And
yeah, amazing group of people, really fun. Again, another kind of growth run, and a great legacy company, and it was just an amazing experience for me.
That's awesome. It's great. So how many of you in the room, show of hands, how many of you listen to the podcast? Awesome. Fantastic.
How many listen to fall asleep? No? It's either Headspace or Direct Approach? No? Okay.
Besides being just an amazing human being, he's also one of the most humble people you'll ever met. So before Wayne left Young Living, we actually, you interviewed Ryan Napierski as part of what we were then considering an Executive Insights podcast for Direct Selling News. Do you remember back that far? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did it actually in a conference room there. And the thesis at the time was two executives kind of interviewing each other. And I've known Ryan for a long time, so I reached out to Ryan, and it was an amazing conversation, super fun. I thought it was going to be painful. I thought I was going to, crash and burn on the podcast, but it was really interesting to learn and to sit down with other executives and just gain insight. We're all in the trenches together. We have so many of the same learnings, but so many different perspectives as well, and it was a really fun experience.
That was a great episode. It's great executive insight. So Wayne and I, you're out of Young Living a few months later.
Yes.
And Wayne and I were having a discussion and plotting and partnering, and I said, you know what, this is a great time to do a podcast, and I think you should host it.
I was very surprised. I was actually isolating in Bear Lake for COVID, so I was probably in a fevered state when I said yes, that I would be willing to do that, but was really honored. Honestly, I was a little nervous about it initially, going, that's fine, it's going to be another Stuart idea. I'll say yes now. I'll recover. He'll forget about it soon enough, but definitely didn't forget about it. And truly, it's been an honor. It's been such a blast. As you and I have spoken over the years, we've shared podcasts back and forth that we love. I'm kind of a voracious listener for podcasts, and so it was just a really cool experience. to get to dig in and see it from the other side.
Yeah, I think that comment a second ago was a compliment, so I'm just going to stick with it.
It was a compliment. You're an idea guy. That's what I meant. That's what I was trying to say.
I'm going to remember that one as a compliment for sure. So just really like transparency. Like, how many episodes do you think you'd last?
I'll completely honest, 4. I was giving it 4 until I assumed I was going to get the call from you, politely but awkwardly saying thanks but no thanks.
We're going to go another way.
We're going to go in another direction. Really appreciate the effort. But every time I was like, okay, there's, I guess, one more. We'll do one more. So I just kind of kept putting that goal out there of, you'll allow me to do one more. But it's been, honestly, an incredible honor to sit down with so many people just to learn. Like, I geek out on it. For me, it's not something I feel like I have to do. It's definitely something I feel like I get to do. And I know you and Shelley and Paula and everybody behind the scenes are the ones that have really made it possible. That's where all the hard work is done, lining everything up. I get to just show up and have an amazing conversation. I just learned so much. I walk away, I've got my notes on one side to start every podcast, and then I've got my notes that I take away. And I consider, I reflect on these things that I've learned, these things that I've heard kind of over and over again. A lot of them have had a big impact on me professionally and even personally. And so I just feel lucky to do it.
Yeah, well, you do an amazing job. I mean, I hear so many people talk about your relatability, your depth of experience, wisdom, to be able to dig in and feedback and get into the conversation, add value, and it's just, you've just done a great job. Now, you also would admit that over the 40 episodes that you'd say, okay, I'm evolving and learning, and so
for sure.
Absolutely. The two things you said, one is Paula and Shelley. So Shelley runs the DSN brand, all of it. So she's obviously instrumental in her media background, instrumental in making the podcast hum and getting it out there. And then Paula Phelps, have to make sure she gets a shout out as the producer for Wayne, and for Heather on Iconic Insights, which is our newest podcast, which is doing extremely well. And then the second one is that you said you show up, and I know that that's not true, because I get to see the prep work. I get to see the work that you put in to prepare for each interview. So I just want to make sure that sounded a little flippant, and I think you meant that you're not in charge of the production, but you definitely are preparing.
Absolutely preparing. I guess I meant that I don't have to do the really hard stuff. I'm not sitting there editing and cutting, but I absolutely do, and that's part of what's really enjoyable and fun for me. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of the people that I've gotten to speak with, not everybody, but I get a chance to go back and watch videos and read articles and go through DSN and DSU speeches that they've given to try to get as much context as I can before I go in, just so that I can keep the conversation going. I feel like if, I want to listen, I want to enjoy, and I feel like if someone else is going to take the time, I want to try as hard as I can to make sure that there's as much value there. So I actually do spend, for every hour that it goes, sometimes it's gone a little longer than an hour, apologies for that, but the conversations just get rolling. But yeah, it's 5 hours of prep probably before going in.
It's amazing and admirable. So just current statistics. So 40 episodes have been recorded. You haven't seen what's dropping in the next 2, 4, 6 weeks, which we're super excited about. He's interviewed people from 30 different companies representing $30 billion in revenue. Now, if Wayne and I would have been sitting down in April of 2020 and talked about, can we get to 3,000 uniques? Can we get to, gosh, can you only imagine if we could get to 4,000 uniques? Well, maybe we can't even get to 3,000 uniques. Sure. He's about to go past 13,000 uniques on the podcast. I never wildest imagination thought that the idea would, this is where we'd be sitting literally not even 18 months later.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really surprised by it as well. Really appreciate how many people take the time to listen. Again, even if I was the only listener, I know you wouldn't let me, but I would still sit there and do it because I feel like I learned so much from it. So many amazing perspectives, but yeah, I'm blown away at the reception. It's been incredible.
Now, I think Patricia and Lisa and the whole DSN team does an amazing job of putting out the print publication that we've been doing for 18 years. So it's an amazing publication. But I know consumer behavior and how you consume information has changed. So I told them maybe back in the first quarter of this year that you have to understand that there might be more people actually consuming the podcast than reading direct selling news. Just so you understand that we are a little self-aware. But the print publication isn't going anywhere, but just how the world works these days. Plus, you can listen to a podcast anywhere you're at, anything you're doing, compared to audio is still the only thing you can do while you're doing something else. You got to focus when you read. So we started out with Dan Stastny and Dan Masuga and Amber Olson O'Rourke and Heather, and you kind of get a feel for, originally we thought about this more as a CMO, kind of a CMO to CMO type of an opportunity. But then we quickly realized that it was catching on and people wanted to hear from CEOs and they wanted to hear from some other thought leaders. And so we went out and we pivoted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was a great decision. So, I mean, just
awesome.
to be able to make that kind of shift early on in the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again. I just want to say to Amber and Mark and Dan and everybody, there wasn't an audience at all at that time. So, you were probably doing us a little bit of a favor saying yes and taking a risk, but it really got the momentum going and really helped to establish the whole platform. So thank you to everybody, but thank you early on, especially for saying yes.
So just wanted to, for at least a couple minutes, just talk about, you come here at DSU, you expect new ideas, you expect, new messages from, fresh voices, fresh faces, and I just want to make sure that you understand, and everybody that you come in contact with, that a lot of what you see, or some of what you see, actually has already been broken on Wayne's podcast. It's already been dropped. So Wayne interviewed Jesse McKinney in the summer of 2021. Great podcast, still one of the top ones. And then she comes into DSU in April and basically steals the show. Well, Jason stole the show. She stole what was left to steal. And then the other one is I knew you were sitting there last night at the Amazon workshop, but Wayne interviewed Danny Lee from 4Life 12 months ago, and talked for a while about his Amazon strategy. So.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's, even the content feels so new today, but there's people that are out there. I mean, each of you are out there really blazing a trail and really leading out on so many things. And again, that's what I love, the nature of the podcast and the format, because it can just get out there so quickly. We don't always have to wait, for a longer cycle, but I love getting that information. I love being able to learn what people are doing now and being able to implement that immediately.
Yeah, it's been great to be able to identify a topic or a great speaker and say, okay, we want to get you in and we want to get it out there and the audience as quickly as possible. You interviewed Jason Dorsey late last year, 5-6 months before he hit the DSU stage and stole
Absolutely.
it. I mean,
yeah, he blew me away then. Can I tell the story?
Absolutely.
Your advice you gave me. So obviously you can tell that I don't have a lot of inflection in my voice or energy. And the piece of advice Stuart gave me right before we start recording with Jason, he's like, you got to try to match his energy. And I'm like, not a chance at all. So I just eased back into, okay, this is my lane. I'm going to stick here. But Jason blew me away with his content, with his energy. But again, I think he's also kind of that litmus test of really helping for us to understand some of these major changes and evolutions that are happening, not just culturally, but demographically as well.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I mean, the decision to then convince him to come up on stage and to participate in the CEO Forum and then to do the deep dive workshop this summer. I mean, just and the deep dive was amazing. The deep dive was amazing. It was a whole day with Jason. More and more insights, taking what he said here at DSU and on the podcast and just went, 7 hours deep and truly game-changing for sure. Yeah, for sure. Trying to figure out his schedule. Maybe we'll do something like that again. More importantly, I'm trying to make sure that he makes April DSU. Yeah. But then you, my dear friend Greg Provenzano, co-founder, ACN, who I've known for almost 30 years next year, that interview was classic. Absolutely. Instant classic, let's say. Instant classic, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, the wisdom that he was able to share, still the importance of development and growth that is so foundational to the channel. For me, was an amazing reminder that there's certain things that make us so unique, that are strengths, things that we offer that other competition doesn't. And that interview was a great reminder for me on that for sure. Over 1,000 downloads on that one podcast. So just a great
Yeah,
opportunity.
blew me away.
And great,
Absolutely.
shows Greg's just wealth of experience and wisdom. And as you said, the way he feels about personal development, you all know how I feel. So it was really nice to see that be recognized authentically and appreciated, and have people go back and want to listen to it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great one.
Jesse Lee Ward, Prove It. I have to admit, I took some heat on that one. There were some people that said, "What are you doing? What are you thinking?" And I just basically decided I'm going to go down, burning the flags or something. But sometimes you just got to believe in it and hope that you made the right decision. And she ended up being one of the top 5 so far all time. I got more comments off that one than any other one at the time, and that had to be an experience. I mean, I had an experience watching it. It had to be even more of an experience actually recording it.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought, sitting and trying to, match Jason's energy and then, compare that with Jesse Lee Ward's, I was absolutely blown away. I mean, to really sit down with somebody that's really pioneering, that's really leading, that's understanding what's working today and what's not from the field perspective was so absolutely insightful. And I mean, she's just a phenom. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I think in a couple of minutes we're going to talk a little bit about, but that's her and in chatting with Nick. Is Nick still here? There you go, Nick. Again, another absolutely amazing. If you haven't had a chance to meet Nick, I learned more about today's field distributor and the perspective that we need to have from corporate from those 2 interviews than I would have in 5 years. Absolutely, just sitting through what would have been my normal calls with field leaders where we're just kind of going through the motions, but the insights that they shared, I guess maybe we can even get into a little bit of that right now, because I think that for me, one of the biggest learnings from that, and I hope we get to speak to other field leaders as well, is just how much has changed in the last few years. And for both of them, one of the biggest lessons for me was, jumping back earlier in my marketing career, marketing and branding is all about consistency. It's all about command and control, and the same message has to be everywhere. And we kind of bring the field, these distributors, into our world and our brands. And now it's the exact opposite. They are bringing us into their world, into their brands. And they are even taking and shaping and shifting and molding our brands to fit their Facebook feeds, their Instagram profiles. And 10 years ago, I probably would have been the one freaking out, going, let's send them the style guide. Let's have a conversation about, integrated marketing and the importance. Like, they're so far past us in all of this that it made me completely, absolutely change my tune from, I think, our job, especially I'd say in marketing, but our job as corporate is now empower and engage instead of command and control. And thank you, Nick, and thank you, Jesse Lee, for helping me to really understand that, because I think it really did push me over the edge to where I just want to do everything I can to empower them, to share, to communicate, to build. And I think I also realized that, and again, this isn't from Nick or Jesse Lee, but they might not be with us forever. We used to want kind of this lifetime loyal commitment. They may come in and out of our lives a little bit, and that's okay. And the other thing that I've had to get more comfortable with is we may and probably won't be the only brand or product that they are representing, that they are advocating, that they are sharing. And that is okay too. That's great. We need to look at them. From marketing, we would always try to collaborate. We would do collabs where you're stealing a little bit of the halo from the brand that you're partnering with. And that's what we're doing now. We are trying to affix our brands with theirs and help position us around experts. The Keto Dad, 2 million Facebook followers. Of course, Prove It. Of course, a keto brand would want to be associated with the Keto Dad. So thank you, Nick, for all that you taught me, even in that little short period of time. But it's fundamentally changed how I look at the field and marketing today.
I absolutely 1,000% agree. It was a great interview. I listened to it, and I literally picked up the phone on a Saturday morning and called Wayne, and I said, what we have done is we've made people have to open their minds towards what an influencer can do and can mean to a company without thinking that they're going to do something wrong or that they're evil or that we have to control them. So, and then I turned around and I said, we have to bring in an innovative and successful field leader every 90 days and expose those ideas to the audience that's listening. Now, to those of you in the audience, know it won't always be a prove it person. So just make sure you know that's not going to happen. That's a 2 for 2. God bless you, Nick. God bless you, Jesse Lee. But well, let's move over to what were some of your most memorable, or what were some of the points that you learned, or that some of your other beliefs besides the one you just discussed that maybe have been changed the last 18 months?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard for me to name kind of this was my favorite. There's aspects that I love about all of them. It's hard to pick a favorite child, even though we all really do. It's tough to say this is my favorite child. But for me, it's the perspective. There's so many things that we share, being in a similar business model, but there's so many different perspectives. And for me, so like the two gentlemen in the back, being able to interview John Fleming and Larry, legends, and to be able to glean their perspective, but then also have John sit there and talk about the gig economy. So they helped me look back, and they both helped me look forward. Jesse McKinney, someone who is starting a super socially driven, amazing brand who's dropping products every week. Absolutely every week. I mean, that changed. Prove it as well. The idea that they taught me, talking to Brian, talking to Nick, around incremental innovation and just the importance of a flavor change or some product enhancement. It doesn't have to be this huge new category that you launch into, that you keep quiet for 12 months and spring on the field at convention, and then takes them 6 months to incorporate into the duplication model. Now it can be these incremental innovations, these enhancements, just week by week by week. Talking to Sarah, Scout and Cellar, who's created this clean crafted platform that she is super authentically extending into other categories, and it's genius. It's brilliant. She's taken this strategic asset that is part of the story, that's part of the positioning, and leveraged it as kind of a growth lever. I think that's truly incredible. Mark Stastny, hearing the story about how Orville and his wife helped really create these values and ingrained them into the company so that now that they've left, they're gone for 3 years. I guess 2 more years left or something like that.
Right.
But the ship can still run. People know how to make the right decision, what the right decision would be. And there was the great story about when they were doing the strategic planning meeting. So Heidi stood up and said, "What does that have to do with our values?" And that's all she said. And then she went and kind of stood in the back of the room, and it completely changed the trajectory of that meeting and ultimately changed the strategy. So for me, it's hard to pick like, hey, this was my favorite, because again, it's the amazing perspective of people that can help us look back and forward, the field perspective, public CEOs to people that are just starting a new one today. Yeah. Really incredible.
Yeah, we talked about Greg, we talked about Jesse Lee, you talked about John Fleming, we talked about Prove It. The authentic one with Al Ballo, where he talked about a systemic decline for 10 years and then turning it around. I mean, another top performing podcast. But going back to your takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean.
So I think another really big one for me, whether it was while we were recording, sometimes it was in conversations before, everyone has talked about, just about everybody has spoken about an urgency to evolve. And part of that urgency is true excitement, because they see these amazing opportunities, the rise of social selling, the gig economy, again, a lot of the work that John has done. There is an excitement around what's coming down the pike for us and how we can be so uniquely positioned to take advantage of this. We've been doing this for 100 years. We should be able to beat anybody that's trying to come into our space. There is also the flip side of that. There's also, you could tell, whether it was maybe a shaky voice or a comment, there's also a concern there that if we actually don't evolve quickly enough to take advantage of some of these trends, that we can be left behind. So that really instilled in me kind of that same urgency of what can we do? And I think whether it's the podcast or this event, to really help communicate that there's that urgency and where we can each help kind of point the way forward to see what's working. I've sat in most of your events and have learned so much every time. And this one felt different to me. It really did. I think that we've kind of been talking about some of these changing dynamics, And I feel like whether it's Danny, whether it's Blake, whether it's Amanda, I mean, so many, we're now seeing some of these initial steps that I think all of us can kind of take those best practices and incorporate, but also stick to the fundamentals. That was really important. So we did talk about the independent distributor being more independent than they ever have. We've kind of used that word, but we haven't really liked that part of the independent distributor. Yes, but they're our distributor, and do what we say and stick with us, and you can't ever leave. And again, that has fundamentally changed. We are moving into their worlds, and we need to be okay with that. That was huge for me. Another big takeaway, obviously technology. You know, you kind of can't talk about change without talking about technology. It's almost cliche, but it has fundamentally changed how we do business. We've always been that kind of face-to-face, belly-to-belly. And whether it was 2020 and 2021 accelerating it, most of our interactions were and forever will be going forward digital. If you look at the large majority of the interactions that you're going to have with someone in your organization, the vast majority are going to be digital. It doesn't always mean that's preferred. It just means there will be more of those. So what do we do to keep those unique, memorable, intimate, personal? How do we keep that going? But then make sure that we bring in that personal aspect. For me, I think, again, kind of that digital versus, physical, kind of the face-to-face. You can look at it kind of like the marketing funnel, where digital's awesome for prospecting. It can help you cast that wider net, but as you move someone through the funnel and your relationship gets stronger and stronger, that relationship needs to be more personal. It needs to be more intimate. It needs to be more face-to-face. I loved hearing from Joni and Senegence about how they are adopting and experimenting with NFTs, with AR, with VR. And she mentioned Peter Diamandis, who I know is one of your great friends as well.
Of course.
And he talked about if you're not playing in the sandbox around AR and VR, he said you're going to be left behind in 5 years. Also with EXP, again, what they have done and the forefront that they have been on. These are things that we don't have to just adopt and throw in immediately, but I loved that Joni was really clear to say it's okay to experiment as well. You can try things, it may not work, but just start getting familiar with those.
Just the interesting story there is,
yeah, please.
Jenny and I are at dinner with Ben and Joni at their house 3 years ago, and he wanted to know, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, well, I'm going to a Peter Diamandis event. And I told him what it was, and he says, can I go? And I said, well, I'm sure I can. Peter's not going to tell me you can't come. So I think sometimes I forget that the ripple effect
Absolutely.
Of having them introduced to his feed and what he thinks, and then for them to be unbelievable proponents and students. So
yeah, and introducing him into their field. I mean, it's amazing. Just that one introduction.
Yeah,
absolutely
sorry I
incredible.
interrupted.
No, that's amazing. Another one, and again, this sounds a little bit cliche, but is leadership. So many valuable lessons, so many experiences that each of you have gone through that you've been kind enough and candid enough to share with me and everyone that listens absolutely has an impact. And it's not always what goes right. It's also some lessons that each of us have kind of learned along the way. And one of the things that, again, kind of almost back to the Heidi and Orville, almost everyone has talked about, each of you leaders that I've had a chance to talk to talks about the importance that success really comes from defining and living mission, vision, values. And these have become so common that we almost just kind of throw them around and we put them on a poster. And unfortunately, oftentimes companies can abandon these things in the pursuit of growth. Oh, well, let's just move over into here. Or, if we adjust this way, we might be able to attract this group. But ultimately, the success has come down, as you've shared with me, to living those mission, vision, values, and especially the presidents, the CEOs, continuing to beat that drum over and over and over. And I know you'll get tired of it and even feel, like you've done it kind of ad nauseum, but there's always someone new. There's always someone that needs to hear it. And again, as with the Heidi example, it truly impacts strategy. It truly impacts our go forward. Another interesting lesson that I've learned that I think we need to hear much more of, hearing from Kevin Guest, hearing from Jared Turner, hearing from Dallin Larson. For so long, for so many years in the discussion around leadership, it's been this glorifying the hustle. It's all about the hustle. It's about the grind. It's about working 29 hours a day and 700 days a week. And I mean, just these impossible things. And they shared some really amazing stories with me that really impacted me on, for them to be better leaders, they also need to give time and attention to other areas and aspects of their lives. And Kevin said, you can't draw from an empty well. And so you as leaders, there's always one more email, there's always one more phone call, there's always one more meeting, there's one more Zoom. But if you take the time to set some boundaries, it's not really work-life balance, it's work-life integration, but just taking the time to give attention to other areas of your life, and sometimes those other areas are yourself. It can be going for a walk, it can be exercise, it can be your diet. That was huge for me. I feel like we hadn't heard that for 10 years, and I selfishly love asking, those personal questions, because those are some of the biggest takeaways for me that really kind of resonate and hit home. And I know where I've failed at times in my life, where I've put too much emphasis on one area, but it's that balance that's really going to help impact for sure. Another one also for me is on the competition front. We all know that's changing. We all know that, look at the amazing collaboration here. We've known that for years and years. But the nature of competition is absolutely changing. You shared with me that there are so many other ways for people to earn additional income. We used to kind of be the only game in town. You could have a second job. You could work after you got off your first job and put in another shift at stocking shelves at a store or something like that. So we were kind of that only game for so long that you could really, in a more fluid way, make some additional income. And now there's so many other ways to make additional income that it's really incumbent on us to make sure that we're differentiated, that we show the value, that we stand out. And each of you in these podcasts also shared with me that they gotta be simple. We have to be simple to do business with, from a systems standpoint, from a compensation standpoint, from a building a team standpoint. Make it really easy so that I don't have to go, click an app on my phone and go drive for 3 hours. Eventually we have to get it to where that's super, super simple. And I think that, again, in talking to some of the people, again, I'm looking at some of them now that have talked about, you, John, others in these interviews and discussions, Stuart. So then if people have all these other options to earn additional income, what is our main value proposition? So of course we have these amazing products that really need to kind of lead the way, but it's the sense of community. So, I know Russ, is it weird quoting my own brother? But as he spoke yesterday about how so many of these other CPG brands are building multi-tiered commission structures, or these other platforms are kind of coming into the world that we've lived in, we're able to go more into them. But a lot of their relationships, when they talk about influencer marketing or affiliate marketing or community marketing, it's kind of this one and done. Like I've been on that end also when you've been at a D2C brand and you look at your influencer calendar and influencer strategy, and it's not usually these long-term relationships. So we have that opportunity to build community, and that's something we can offer, that we have offered forever, that no one else really can.
Yeah, those are all incredible points. And so glad to be able to hear from you and kind of roll reversal data.
It's fun. Yeah, absolutely. I love. That is actually better. Maybe we can change the format of the podcast and they can just ask me questions for all. But no, I'd love to know what stood out for you, Stuart.
Oh my gosh! The pressure of putting Jesse Lee on. I think the fact that I came through that one and actually got accolades for making the decision, that was a close call. There was some people that thought I was going to crash and burn on that one. I think having the legends come in like John, and then some of the thought leaders like Jason, it's always nice just to kind of pepper some differences in there, and they've been a lot as well. The diversity that we've been able to have, and being able to go around different companies, different products, different ages, different sizes. I think that's probably been what's really kept me thinking, okay, where are we going to go next? Who are we going to go next? And we've got some incredible people coming up soon. And Garrett mentioned he's on the schedule to go over more of those notes he talked about. We look at the people who succeed at the live events and say, okay, have we had them on? Okay, based on where they ranked, we probably need to give them more than 20 minutes to talk about what they're talking about. So I'm sure you'll see Amanda Tress in your future. I'm sure you'll see Michelle Gay, and you'll see Michelle Gay in your future. So I've enjoyed every one of them. It's just been I had a friend of mine, executive running a company, and it's crazy. He told me 5 years ago, just so you guys know, I am a slow learner. 5 years ago, so you really need to move into podcasts. And I'm like, yeah. Of course, I was trying to figure out how to make a Success magazine profitable at the time. So But I'm glad we did it, and couldn't be happier than, with the results, blown away. And I speak for myself. I mean, I speak for the entire team, Shelly, Paula, everybody at DSN. We're just really honored and so pleased to have you as our partner in this. And I think the audience feels the same about what you've been able to do.
It's been fun. No, honestly, I want to thank you, Stuart, for even making it happen. I know that DSN, I always feel a sense of responsibility, honestly. I think it's an incredible brand. It's you and that brand have been such amazing advocates for the channel and for each of us. So just being able to be associated is an honor, but to be able to do this continually, I'm still waiting for the phone call when you're going to say, we're going to go in a different direction. But up until then, it's really been an honor. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in. We invite you to subscribe so that you're the first to know when new episodes are available. And we invite you to save the dates for the next DSU in-person only event and the annual DSN Global Celebration, April 18th through April 20th, 2023 in Frisco, Texas. Registration will open soon. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.